It's June 12th, and the plants, I should say, are starting to show some serious size and some serious growth. We're coming out of our little typical Northern California cool June, and we got warmer weather coming, so I think this growth was even gonna go even faster. This is the 2465 Dawson. This is from my pumpkin last year. And I have this guy pollinated right here. It was pollinated 2 days ago. Timing wise is pretty good. Plant size is pretty good. Number of secondaries, I think I counted 24, 25 secondaries that would be behind that pumpkin. I do have this one in the tip as an option. I haven't decided. I think I'm okay for my last way off of the year, Half Moon Bay. If I want around 115 days, I could still pollinate, I want to say, a week from now or 6 days from now. So I may still do that, just to have even bigger plant size. But I really like the look of that pumpkin. It's a really big pumpkin given, it's only just been pollinated. But we'll see. I may run it. Everything has been going pretty good. Just like at the end of the last video, I said, I don't really have any complaints. Almost immediately after that, I realized I've got some moles that are in the patch that I have not been able to trap. I've got multiple trap set. There's one under the box there. But I've been finding mole holes around the plant, which probably most of you are aware. Moles are insectivores, so they don't actually eat the plant, which is good, unlike gophers. But they do tunnel holes as they're going for worms and grubs, and then that can affect the roots. It can also affect when you're watering, water just gets in the holes and sheds away. So it can be a really big problem. So I'm definitely on the hunt, and I do now have a problem. As the last video, I was bragging about not having really anything to complain about. But other than that, things are still really going well. Unlike previous years, I think I can count on one hand with these 3 plants, like the total number of leaves that I've lost, either from heat or just accidentally breaking them or anything. I mean, it's just been really, as far as like keeping the plant together, from start to finish, it's been really good. I think this 2465 is probably the biggest of the plants, but not by much. Let's show you the other plants. All right, this is the 2177. This might be my favorite plant. You can see I'm coming to the edge of the patch here. Another near perfect leaves, and this one was pollinated. I've actually pollinated 2 on this one now. I pollinated one June 4th, which is my earliest pollination, and then I pollinated one also 2 days ago on this plant. I think this plant's even longer by a little bit. You can see here, that one was pollinated June 4th, just about a little over a week ago. And I pollinated that one 2 days ago. And I'm much more likely to run that one. And then I do have one that will probably open in 2 days. So that could be the one that I go for on the Half Moon Bay date, potentially. You can see I've ramped up my soil a little bit here. Not as high as I did last year, not as high as I'd like. Like for example, if I was going with that pumpkin, I want that stem height to be as high as possible so I can keep roots, here, as opposed to them being up in the air and having to cut them. I did that last year with the 2465 and it worked really well. But every year is different and every plant is different as far as just like training the vines. So, we'll see if I can really make that work exactly like I did last year. I'd like to. Here is the 2560, and this is the same as like I mentioned before. It's the smallest of the plants. Like, it's not quite as far out. Total number of secondaries is about the same, and plant health is like great. I don't, no complaints there. I've got One pollinated here yesterday. That guy right there. Not much to see yet. And I have one more there if I were to choose. Yeah, so things look good on this plant too. It's just not as big as the others, but it is really very dense. Leaves are large and they're very compact node spacing wise. So someone from the last video wanted to know how I'm keeping my shade cloth up. So it's just a T-post in the ground. All of these are T-posts in the ground. And then I use 8-foot 1x2 board, which are the really cheap ones that you can get at your hardware store. A large like 3-inch hose clamp on the bottom and on the top. And at the top here, I took a 1/2-inch PVC pipe and I heated it up with a torch, and then I bent it around a paint can. So that's what created that kind of radius shape. Drilled 2 holes and screwed it into the 1x2. And all it's doing is just, it's a smooth surface so that when you're putting the shade cover up and when you get wind, you don't tear holes in the shade cover. Another question I got was around what am I doing for watering and fertilizing? To talk about water first, I'm basically giving these plants water in 2 different ways right now. The first is through the drip system, and if I'm doing any kind of fertilization, it's going to go through the drip system. And I'm probably doing around 50 gallons a day. Again, it's not been very hot here, so I'm just monitoring the moisture level. The second thing that I'm doing, which I think is really important, is I'm doing probably an additional 25 to 30 gallons of water, of hand watering per day. The reason I really like to hand water, especially early on in the season like this, is I like to keep that top layer of the soil surface moist, like that top 1/2 inch, 1 inch moist, which the drip system doesn't do a great job of. And also because I'm burying vines along here, I really want to promote a nice moist condition to get those roots down into the ground. Once they're down into the soil, it doesn't matter as much. But right now with the amount of vine bearing that's going on, you got a lot of roots that are trying to start. Same as last year, I'm using a dosatron to do my fertilizing. I make up my concentrate here of whatever it is that I'm using. That concentrate goes into the dosatron, which I control the mix ratio here. I have a timer here that I can control with my phone. I have 2 banks, one for each patch. And then I also have a wireless flow meter, so I know exactly how much water actually went into the system. And then on this timer over here, I can control my overhead watering. Right now, like I said, I'm hand watering because I want to be really precise and get down where the roots are at for the vine bearing zones. But you know, on hot days or later in the year, or if I can't be here, I will use this to do some overhead watering for heat. And you can see that's I just turned it on. That's these guys. I got one there and one there, and then I have a separate bank on the other patch over here. All right, so as far as fertilizer, there's quite a few jugs here, but really there's not a lot that I'm doing, or the quantities that I'm doing is very low. So I do every few days use a fish and seaweed fertilizer. I do provide a small amount of calcium nitrate, which is like a 1500. I'm using a fraction of what the recommendation is here. So it's just very, very small amounts, but I do it consistently to just keep the nitrogen levels up in the plant, keep building that plant. If you overdo it with the calcium nitrate, you can have issues. You can bloat leaves, you can make them more sensitive to heat, the plant becomes brittle. Just generally the theme for me is do not overdo it. Small amounts over the course of weeks goes a long way. And then I have like humic acid, fulvic acid, and kelp-based products that help feed the microbiology in the soil. And then I have a few different products that are providing beneficial bacteria, and so that is working into the soil along with those other, you know, humic, fulvic, kelp, that are in the soil. Plus I amended with alfalfa meal and stuff like that previously. You saw in earlier videos. And then when I'm vine bearing, I'm using a mycorrhizae product as well as Azospirillum beneficial bacteria. And that's really important. I'm putting both of those things together right on the root nodes and every node that I bury. Probably, in my opinion, it's easier to overdo it. My mom's growing 2 pumpkins right now. She's fertilizing almost nothing, and her plants look almost as good as mine. So you really don't need to overdo it with a lot of products. Later in the year, as you get a pumpkin on, I think there's higher fertilization demands and it becomes a little bit more important. All right, so that is the update for the week. I don't really have much else to share. Hope you guys are doing well and you're getting your pumpkins pollinated about this time as well.